Morning, folks. I'm Dave Canterbury with Self-Reliance Outfitters and the Pathfinder School. What I thought we'd do today is I want to show you the process of adding a trail to your map. So you've went out and you've purchased a map, and places like mytopo.com are probably the best places to get maps of the area that you're operating in. That's where we get our maps for the Pathfinder School, and you can select the scale that you want that map to be made. You can select the area that you want that map of, and they will print them for you on a waterproof paper and send them to you. And their cost for that is pretty nominal, in my opinion. We use their maps all the time here at the Pathfinder School for all of our training. So again, mytopo.com, not affiliated with them in any way, just giving you the best place to get maps. We use a 1 to 10,000 scale map here at the Pathfinder School. That gives us a very large area visually that you can see on the map. And what that really means is that 1 inch on the map equals 10,000 inches on the ground. Most maps, standard maps, are somewhere in the 1 to 24,000, 1 to 50,000 type scale, which means 1 inch on the map would be 25,000 or 50,000 inches on the ground. So 1 to 10,000 gives you a bigger picture of what you're looking at. It makes it easier to draw things in, makes it easier to see contour lines, makes it much more visible to see terrain features that aren't going to be as small on a map that's got that larger scale, and condenses it down to give you a bigger swatch. So with all of that said, you've got your map in your hand. Now there's a couple of ways that you can do this. The first thing is, if you know where you're starting from, like I have a major linear feature here. I have a logging road with an actual pull-off spot where you can park. So I know where that's at. I can find that on the map because there's a hardball road at the other end. So it's very easy for me to find this spot on the map. It sits in a saddle between two hilltops. So I know my starting point on this map. And then if I want to walk a trail that's not on the map, because beyond this point, it pretty much ends on this map. There's nothing beyond it. So I want to map what's beyond this because I know where lots and lots of trails are out here. And most of them, 99% of them, are not on this map. So I can take this map in my hand, use my compass, keep my pace count, use terrain features, and walk through here. And we're going to talk about this a little bit as we go, and kind of pencil in the trail around contours, because a lot of your trails are going to follow contour intervals. They're going to follow contour lines on the map. And we can mark them in that way, keeping track of exactly where we're at on the map by terrain feature association, by how far we've walked with our pace count, and all those types of things. The more accurate way, probably, and the easier way for most people, would be to take a GPS program on your phone like Mill GPS. And again, I'm not affiliated with that program in any way, but it's the best program I've found available for iPhone, and it's called Mill GPS. I think the program's like $10 forever. You pay for it one time and you've got it, and it updates constantly. And what you do is you take your starting point wherever that is. It doesn't matter if you know exactly where you're at that point. You can drop a pin. You can figure it out later against the map, or you can figure it out right then and there against the map. If you have a protractor and you take the UTM grid, you can figure out exactly where you're starting. And then you can just walk with your phone, and every time that trail turns a different direction, you can drop another pin and just drop pins all the way along that trail, walk back out. You can do it along the way with the map if you want to, or you could go back to a location like your house, sit at your kitchen table, get your UTM grid plotter out, and you can plot those coordinates on your map and just connect the dots. And that's probably the most accurate way of doing it. I want to show you both because not everyone has access to GPSs. Not everyone has access to iPhones. And the other bad thing about that is that even though GPSs should work 99.9% of the time, there are times that I've been out in this particular area that's about a 6-mile square, and there isn't very good reception even with satellites because of the canopy. So you have to be careful of that as well. But I think we can get the job done both ways. We're going to start walking down through here. We're going to walk about, I don't know, maybe 2K and map that trail. And we'll come back. We'll go to the classroom. We'll put it on the map, and we'll show you how to do that both ways. Stay with me. Okay. So I know that I came down a hardball road here, and I know that I am sitting in a saddle area here with a pull-off. I also know that there's another trail straight up the way here, but there's another trail that goes off into the woods up here, and that's the one that I want to map. So knowing where I'm at here is going to allow me, if I don't have a GPS, to walk down here and have a known starting position for starting my pace count for where trails go up into this woods and where they go from there, because this trail and this trail are the only ones on the map. But I know that there's a trail that goes up through this woods, and that's the one that I want to get an accurate mapping of. So I have to have a starting point. This is a known location to me. The hardball intersection is a known location to me. And this intersecting trail here is a known location to me. So I can start at any of those three places to start to figure out what's what. And if I want to verify any of that, just to make sure that I am where I think I am, I can always drop a pin on my GPS, use my protractor to figure out the grid of my exact starting location. So let's look at our protractor and get a grid for this by dropping a pin on our GPS and see if things correlate. Okay, here's where things get a little complicated if you haven't watched other map reading videos and understand how to plot UTM grids with a protractor. We marked on our GPS our current location. We were in grid 6923, and so here's 23 and here's 69, and we read right and up, so we're in this grid square somewhere. Okay, remember we said we were right here. All right, now we're going to look at the next numbers, which are 122, and we're going to go right. There's 1, 2, and just a little bit more. And our second set of numbers are 23.6. So we're going to go up. There's 23 and a little bit more. And if we put a dot right there, that puts us just exactly where we thought we were. So our starting point is verified to be right there on our map. And if we wanted to, we could write a number 1 here, and we could come back on the map and write a number 1 on the map to correlate that later. Okay? Okay, so this is the trail that we just walked up, and that's the trail that is on the map. This trail is not on the map. If you look at the trail that we came in on, it continues up here, and that trail is on the map along that fence line. This trail that cuts across, it's on the map. This one that we want to map is not on the map. So now we should verify again to make sure this trail is where it actually says it is on the map. If we're going to use that for some kind of a baseline, we want to make sure it's in the right place, because things do move on maps, and we want to make sure that's right. So we're going to first check our pace count from where we last were at. We walked a straight trail. We didn't make any turns. We didn't need to make any azimuth adjustments or anything like that. It was a pretty straight shot. And we'll check our pace count against the GPS and kind of verify our pace count's still working right, and that the GPS is showing us the trails where it's supposed to be, and that our map is correct. And then we will begin to map a new trail. Okay, so a couple things that we can easily verify now. We've marked the spot on our GPS, and there's the new grid coordinate. I've plotted that with my plotter on the map, and it is just almost exactly where we're sitting. It is at that trail junction we just talked about, 10 feet in front of me. Okay, the next thing I want to verify is, how's my pace count look compared to everything else? Okay, because I counted my paces, and I'm going to show you my pacing beads here on my pack. And here's my pace beads right here. I've got 3 down, and I counted 17 steps, I think it was. So that is 300 meters, because my pace count is 70 in uneven terrain. So 70 paces times 3 is 300 meters, and then about, I think it was 17 more paces, something like that. Okay, so a little over 300 meters. So if we take our map, we pull it back up here and we look at where we walked, knowing that we have a 1 to 10,000 grid, which another thing that makes this really easy is that, you know, each one of these is 100 meters. So if we put one point here and one point where we walked, we are about 350 meters, a little less than 350 meters from where we started. So our pace count is pretty accurate at this point as well. Now what we need to do, if we don't have a GPS, is we need to figure out what the compass bearing is going up into the woods so that we can at least get that directionality correct on our map to begin with. And then, again, we'll walk up through there. We know where we're starting. We just need to figure out what direction we're going if we don't have a GPS. If we're going to use our GPS for all of this, instead of just verification, we would just start walking up the trail until it makes a turn and put another mark on the map, either before or after, before we get back or after we get back to the cabin or the house. So we're going to take a bearing up into the woods here in the direction of travel, and we're going to plot that on our map really quick, so at least we know what direction of travel we have going in. So now I'm beginning a pawl mapping type process by myself. I don't have a leapfrogger, so I'm going to have to pick something as far away as I can see and mark that with my compass and pace count my way to that and keep track of things that way. Again, unless I use a GPS to mark every point that I make a directional turn. So to do this, what I'm going to do is I'm looking uphill actually into the woods. And the reason I'm doing this is I want to find out where on this contour, on this map, am I beginning to travel up into the woods. And that's important to understand that to map this trail. So I'm going to take my compass and I'm going to point to an object up there that I can see off in the distance, which is a poplar tree. And I'm going to take a correct reading in my compass, give myself full presentation on the compass and put the needle in the doghouse here. Move things around. Verify everything's where it's supposed to be. And now my direction of travel is about 56 degrees. Now I want to go to the map. All right, now I know that I'm going to walk up into this wooded area across these contours, but I don't know which direction I'm actually going within those contours. So now I need that 56 degree reading that I'm going to leapfrog to in my first heading here. So what I want to do is I want to orientate the map. So I'm going to put north at the top of my compass. My declination is set to 6 degrees, which is matching the map. And I'm going to lay my compass on the corner of my map and turn the map until the needle is in the doghouse. And that's going to give me the correct orientation of this map. Then I'm going to plug that 58 degrees into my compass. And I'm going to lay it on the point where I'm at right now to walk into the woods. And again, I'm going to put the needle in the doghouse. Now that's telling me that I'm walking off in this general direction. So I'll just put a light mark on the map knowing I'm going to be walking straight basically uphill on top of that contour. And now I'm going to start pace counting to the point that I saw off in the woods. And if I can keep going straight, I'll keep going straight. If I have to make a turn, then I'm either going to mark it on my GPS or I'm going to have to figure out my pace count, where I'm at, mark it on the map, and then make a turn and put a different direction of travel on here until I get this mapped out for the trail that I've got in the woods. Okay, this tree was my mark. The trail is continuing to go uphill, following that same contour line, following that basically straight uphill direction on that same general azimuth. So I'm going to take another azimuth from here to an object as far as I can see up the trail. Right back there's where we came from. And continue the process until this trail takes a turn. Okay, so here's a tip or trick real quick, all right? If we're not using a GPS and we're trying to do this by hand, you can see that that is uphill, that is downhill. We're still going straight, but we're not going straight up to the highest point. So we are contouring around this highest point. That tells me that when I draw my trail in at the next turn, that the trail actually followed a contour line or a contour interval basically around that highest point and never walked straight up to the highest point. And that's important to understand when you're doing this mapping. Okay, now we are at an intersection. Here's where we came from. Again, skirting that contour. And now we have a turn left or turn right. Now we can obviously assume, if we've been paying attention to what's going on, that if we turn right, it's going to go back down to that cross trail that we didn't take. What we want to know is what's going on here. Now we could also map that, and we can infer that, because it's not a very far walk, I'm sure. As long as we mark the spot we're standing at now on the trail where we make this turn, we'll know that in the opposite direction is that cross trail back there, and we can put that, pencil that into our map as well. So let's try to get that point on the map by our pace count and see where we're at. Okay, now I don't know if this is going to make sense to you. I hope it does. This is some complicated stuff that we're doing as far as map reading and things go. If you look at this, we only went about 100 meters. My pace count was 73. So my pace count was a little over 100 meters. We went a little less than 100 meters here, and we drifted only about 16 or 17 meters here, not even that much. So side to side, we went in a pretty straight line, and we went forward about 100 meters. And that checks out with exactly what we said. We followed that same contour in a pretty straight line, and we walked about 73 paces, which was just a little over 100 meters, so that's a close correlation. Now we can get this point on our map, or again, we can wait till we get back to do that. And we know this is a T intersection, and we're going to have to take another compass bearing going in another direction now. All right, again, I don't want to get too complicated with this, but for further verification of everything checking out between our GPS and our personal devices and our pace and all that stuff. Again, we said we didn't move hardly at all laterally. And we took that and we put that line on our map of the compass bearing we were following. And you can see that even though the trail meandered just a little bit in between here, we still ended up on almost exactly the same bearing line at the end. And now we're at a T intersection, so we've got to find another bearing off in this direction somewhere, or this direction, on this T intersection. But everything right now is lining up and checking out. So if we're practicing this and using our map and compass and our pace count to do this, and we're using an aid like a GPS to verify things, if everything's matching up, that's good practice. Okay, so you're following a bearing, basically on a trail. And you can cheat this just a little bit by watching your compass as you walk. Don't slow down and stutter step and all of that. Just walk at a steady pace. And as long as your compass isn't changing azimuth drastically, the trail's not meandering too much. If you get to a point where you've got to make a turn and you have a pretty drastic azimuth change of several degrees, that's where you need to stop. Either mark it on your GPS or go back to the map and figure out exactly how many paces you've walked since the last known point of origin. Get that point on the map, and then you should be good to go, because you didn't walk off azimuth. So you have a straight line distance that may have meandered a little bit, but it's a pretty straight line. And you have a distance that you walked by paces. So you can plot that on the map and then start again on the new azimuth. Okay, here's another pro tip. We're coming down this trail and it ends and it changes direction or changes azimuth. So the patented answer is I stop, I either mark it on my GPS or I mark it on my map, check my pace counts, get my spot on my map, check my new bearing, and I start over. But I can see, looking at this trail, that it almost immediately switches back, almost on the same azimuth that we're traveling now. Within about 20 feet, it's going to switch right back into the azimuth that we were on. Straight line distance. And I can see that from back here, looking through. So if I know that, I really don't need to change things up. I just walk around that, obstacle, if you will, in the trail, and keep on rocking. And when I plot it on my map, I just won't have that little jut in the trail on there, but I will have the trail. So as long as I follow the trail, it's going to get me in the right spot. Okay, so I've come upon this trashed out log truck. You guys may have seen this in videos before. If you've been to the school, you've definitely seen this before because it's on our courses. There's not a large change in direction here of the trail. However, there is a resource here, and there is a known point of origin that's large enough to see it from a distance in the woods. So I'm going to mark it on my map anyway, and mark it as a burned out or turned over truck so that I have that point of reference for later. Okay, now here's something else that we can verify as we're doing things, all right? If we're keeping our pace count. Remember that these grid squares are 1,000-meter square, and we're moving kind of diagonally through the center of a square. And we've moved about 500 meters here and about 500 meters here. So we've moved about a half a kilometer diagonally through a 1,000-meter grid square. If that matches up with where our pace count is sitting, then we're doing a pretty good job. Little verifications like that will help you be more accurate. I'm gonna sit down here for a minute and take a break, eat some lunch, and then get back after my mapping project. Stay with me. Okay, our trail has come into a T, and I happen to know exactly where I'm at, obviously, because I'm out here a lot. And I'm pretty sure that this trail, for the most part, is on the map. So now we can just connect the dots, basically back at camp or whatever, and see what our new trail looks like through the woods that was not on the map. Back there's where we came from. Okay, so now I would come back and I would make sure that all of my UTM grids have been taken off my GPS, entered into my notebook, and I would go through and enter all of my UTM grids on my map. Once I had done that, I would just connect the dots like I did here, okay? Now that this has been verified 2 different ways, I can go through and erase all of this that's in pencil and actually use a dotted marker line to designate a trail that now I know for a fact is there and where it's at and how it lays on the landscape. Now, when I ended today on number 10, I showed you guys that cross trail coming across. Part of that trail is not on the map. It actually ends here. I know from walking it that it goes all the way out to here. I know it goes out to this pipeline, and I know that it skirts around this area here. So I can infer that for now with a pencil line. And when I go back out there, I can verify that leg and this leg exactly the way we did this trail here. And that's how you add trails to a map that you know exist, but they're not necessarily on the map that you have. All right, guys, well, I'm Dave Canterbury with Self-Reliance Outfitters and the Pathfinder School, and I appreciate you joining me today for this video on marking trails on a map that aren't already on the map that you own, that you know exist in the woods, and how to accurately depict those on your map. If there are concepts in this video that put you completely off the chain because you don't know how to enter UTM grids, you don't understand how to convert a grid off of your GPS device to a map grid. If you're unsure of that kind of stuff, Paul mapping methods of following compass bearings and pace counting, this video is a little more advanced. There are going to be a series of videos surrounding this topic in our virtual classroom on Thinkific.com within the next few weeks. I'm working on them right now. There's already a library there. There's already a virtual survival class there. There are already several projects in that virtual classroom, from making a camp stool to making a bark basket, and also weaving a basket with reed. So there's several projects already in there. It is a pay site. It's not real expensive, but it does support what we do here. And I've got my instructors preparing videos now to also put lessons that are more complicated or a little bit beyond the very few minutes that you can get an attention span on YouTube, so that you can actually download those videos. And the advantage to this virtual classroom is it will enable you to download the material, and it will also enable us as instructors to add material to the lesson that's downloadable for you, from PDF format to Word documents, PowerPoints. All of those types of things will be downloadable in these projects. So when you pay the $2 to $5 or whatever it costs, depending on the size of the project, you'll get all of that as well. Okay, guys, well, look for that link to the virtual classroom at thinkriffic.com at the bottom of this video. Make sure to hit the subscribe button. Make sure to hit the notification bell. I appreciate your views. I appreciate your support. I thank you for everything you do for our school, for our family, for our business, for all of our sponsors, instructors, affiliates, and friends. And I'll be back with another video in this series as soon as I can. Thanks, guys.